Hello everyone, my name is Roy Jafari and I would like to welcome you to this video. In this video we are going to learn about Jupyter Notebook, what it is and how it is going to be useful in our journey of programming and data analysis. So in the environment that you see around my video here, we are actually inside Jupyter Notebook. But before we actually start working with Jupyter Notebook, I would like to sort of take us on a journey on, how is it that Jupyter Notebook came around? And, we want to start with the root, with the Python, and then we will find our way here. All right, so let's start with that journey first. So if I find my Python, if I open my Python, right? So this is the Python, right? So it's a programming environment. It is, just you start writing your code here. For example, we can do the print hello world thing here, right? So we can say print, and we say hello world. And once you enter, it's going to print that. Or you can see simple things like a is equal 10, b is equal 2, then print out for me a divided by 2, and it gives you the answer. Or you could do other things such as, for example, from datetime import datetime, and once we do that, it imports it, and then we can say datetime dot now, and it prints out the date and time of this very moment that I'm creating this video. So this is where things are. I mean, as far as the programming environment, you've got the compiler, and that compiler is going to be receiving a command somehow. It could be as bland as this. But normally when you actually go about creating any solution, doing any programming, you want to work in a better user interface, UI. A user interface is something that we use when we want to do our actual development, right? We don't want something as bland as this. So I'm going to introduce to you two user interface, and once we see those examples, then we will understand what we mean by user interface. So we are going to be looking at Spider and Jupyter Notebook, and the easiest way you can actually use these UIs is through Anaconda. It's a software that you can download free of charge, and it's a package of different resources that one could use for programming and analytics. And all you need to do is to Google Anaconda Navigator install, and the first page that comes up, you can click on it and go through your operating system and do the installation. It has a very simple standard installation, and once you do that, you can open your Anaconda Navigator. This is going to be how this environment looks like. This is your Anaconda Navigator. Let me make sure this is maximized. This is your Anaconda Navigator, and you can see we've got Jupyter Notebook and also Spider here. Let's see where is Spider, and Spider here, right? So we're going to look at these two in a minute, but let me give you a caution here. When you open this Anaconda Navigator for the first time, not actually for the first time, every time you open it up, it's going to be for 30 seconds that it's going to start opening up. It has a long lead time. So you could open things, Jupyter Notebook or Spider from there, or you could just simply, once your Anaconda is installed, you could just say Jupyter Notebook in your Windows search box. For example, I say Jupyter Notebook, it brings it here for me. I can directly access it, or Spider. right? So you could just type out spider and it's going to bring it here for you. So you don't have to actually go through here, but let's just do it once from here. So you click launch on spider and it start working here. It's starting trying to open this, and then it actually start opening this for you. All right, so here's our environment, right? So this is our spider environment, and we could do the same thing that we did, what we did in this console, right? So for example, we can say print hello world thing, and then click enter. It's going to do that for us. We can also say something like, import datetime from datetime and enter. Oh, we should say from datetime import datetime. That's the mistake I made. And then you can say datetime.now, and then it gives us the time of the day. I mean, everything that we did in the sort of like Python, that bland environment, we can also do it here. But pay attention here. We can also do other things here. We can actually create a solution here for ourselves, right? For example, we can say print, say hello, and then we can say print, and then we can also say A is equal 10, B is equal 2, then print 10A divided by B. And once we have this code, we can run everything all at once, and it say hello and gives me the answer, right? So now I can develop a solution here, right? So, and that's the difference here, right? We now have an environment to develop a solution and save this for ourselves in the future, for the future. I could also, leave some comments here. For example, I can say $, this is a test, right? So I mean, this is just a comment. The compiler is just going to skip it, but now we can use this commenting thing throughout to leave useful notes for ourselves to be able to use it for future, because we are going to be using this file for the future, right? So that's spider, right? So this is was an example of spider. All right, so now let's look at Jupyter Notebook. When you open it for the first time, it's going to show you. Let me actually open it for the first time here. Let me close it down here, so we can just see it together. I can just go from my Windows and say Jupyter Notebook. It's just going to be much faster for this to run. And once it opens, it is going to gives you this user interface, and in this user interface you're going to have a mirror of the directories on your computer, right? So this is the root in your computer, right? So then from here you can navigate using this very simple directory manager to go through where you want to go, right? So I'm going to go where I want to go, and of course I'm going to have these blurred, so we would not be able to see the gut of my files and everything, but once I find my ways there, right, so this is where I'm keeping all of my files for creating this video, right? So now once I'm here, now I can use this button to create a Python 3 file, right? So once I do that, now I get to see the environment that I can start doing some coding, right? So for example, I could do the thing print hello world, right? And once I run, it prints out. And now pay attention. Now with another chunks open for me, right? I can now do other things. A is equal 10, B is equal 5. Now print for me 10 or A divided by B, right? So now you can have everything that you need to work on for a specific task, for a specific experiment, and have these separate chunks for yourself. And that's just going to be the difference between these two UIs, right? So now we saw the distinction between what is a UI from just that bland environment of Python, right? So this was that bland environment. And we saw Spider UI and Jupyter Notebook UI. So Jupyter Notebook is a great environment for development, collaboration, and also learning. We are going to see how Jupyter Notebook is going to be essential as we start our learning journey here. All right, so the most important thing we want to learn when we are working with Jupyter Notebook is that we have two types of chunks. Let me, clean the slate, wipe the slate clean. So we've got code chunk and we've got Markdown chunk. These are the most two important, chunks in these, in these UI. In code chunks, you write a code, right? So this is where you write your code, right? But in the Markdown chunk, this is where you put down your own notes or notes for collaboration, right? And once you run this sort of like becomes a node, and it doesn't compile, but it is there. You can use it as a way to communicate something to someone or communicate with yourself in the future, because you want to read this in the future if you take your time creating a good Jupyter Notebook file. So now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go through an example of creating something here together. So we would learn a little bit about Jupyter Notebook. So here I'm going to do some programming that we're going to learn in the future videos. But here, pay attention as I am using the functionalities of Jupyter Notebook. So the focus of our learning here is not learning the programming I do. I'm going to use something that I'm going to explain in the future about the programming. But the focus here is how I'm using Jupyter Notebook. So try to learn my optimal way that I'm going to be using this UI for the purpose of my own learning, right? So I come on top, I use this cut to cut everything, right? So now I make this a Markdown chunk and I say, in this file I am learning about how to use datetime module to tell me what day, what time and day it is now, right? So this is what I'm trying to do in this file, right? So, I can, just run this. Now I've got this on top. I can perhaps give this a title. The way I would use a title in Markdown chunk is by starting with a pound sign, right? So I say pound sign and I say, for example, purpose, right? So once I run this, now I've got purpose on top. And then I could also sort of like emphasize on date time here, right? If I use 2*, it make this one as bold, make this one word as bold, right? I could also use 1*, to make this italic, right? So these are the, you can see this is italic, this is bold. So these are the things that you can use for, sort of giving some formatting in the Markdown chunk. So now I, add another one. I say, another Markdown chunk. I say, okay, the following line import datetime module, right? So I say this now, then in the actual code chunk I say from datetime import datetime, right? So this is how we would write this, and then I can now use datetime.now. This is the function that this module has. I just happen to know this, but we'll go about all of those in one of the future videos, and then it gives me the datetime now. Even though it gives me all of the good information that I need, the year, the month, the day, the hour, the minute, and so on and so forth, but it's not giving me in a good format. So I want to create a function to give me a better formatting here, right? So for example, I create another markdown chunk and say, I want task purpose 2, right? On purpose 2, I want to create a function. Let me just give the function. The function what time and day it is now to print out something in a better format, right? And I can use this sort of like another trick here. If you use this sign, I don't actually know what's its name. It's the key on your keyboard below the escape button on the top left, right? I don't know, squeal. I don't really know what we call it, but no matter what its name, if you use it and to open and close it, then once you run this, it makes, once you put it on in the close and open and close this this symbol, then it is meant to create this as a function. I mean, not a function, sort of like shows it as a code. I don't know exactly why this is happening, but that's what you would use to make this work. But anyway, let's continue here. So that's another thing you want to pay attention here. I mean, it could be something that I just doesn't register, doesn't show. But regardless, I'm confident that this is that thing that you use. But anyway, let's move on. So now we want to create that function. So I say define this function, right? And I make sure to, before that function also, create this, and I say, let's create a template. My template is going to be in a string with a few things that I'm adding, and of course we are going to learn about all of this. Today is, and the time is. So basically I am, putting some, some places that I want to fill in based on, the information that I'm going to be gathering from date time. So now I would say return, right? I would say template dot format, and just for you to know, we'll go over this in another video, but basically I'm going to fill in every place I have this bracket open and close, right? So for example, I would say datetime dot now dot year, and then so on and so forth. Year, day, I'm going to just copy them, and then I will take care of them in a minute. Then I've got, so the first one I want to be month, and then I've got day, then I've got year, and then after that, now I'm looking at this, I've got hour, then I've got minutes, minute, and then I've got second, right? So that's the function, right? So I could just create the function, now just call the function. And it says it's a function, you have to open and close the parentheses, and it gives me an error. It says this is not second, we don't have some anything like that, and now it gives me that code I was looking for, right? So this is the exact time and also you know, the date that I was looking for. I could say print to make sure that, you know, this, you know, quotation is not shown here, and there we go. I could do something like, you know, for I in range, you know, repeat this 100,000 times to sort of see what happens in 1,000 times, and you know, it print out the same thing. Let me see if, yeah, I mean 1,000, it ran this 1,000 times in just 1 second. Let me make this 10,000 times. Let's see what changes. If we do this in 10,000 times, it's 44, 45. We see now it's, you know, it took a little bit more than a second. The reason I'm creating this is just wanted to sort of like show you one thing about Jupyter Notebook, right? So sometimes we want to sort of like have some control over, you know, this output part that comes with every code chunk. If you click on this, it's going to show everything. That scroll, you know, individual scroll bar is going to be gone. If you click again, that's going to come back, right? So that individual scroll bar is going to come back. And if you double click on this, this is just going to, like, you know, make it go away. So if you know, have some trouble, you want to like make sure that, you know, you don't have that, you can use this trick. A few other things about this top ribbon, let us go over them. You know, of course, this I've been using this, but you know, let's just do it again. If you use this, this is going to add new chunks. And then if you want to change to code and Markdown, this is the place you use. You could copy a chunk, right? For example, you could, you know, copy this and then, for instance, paste it, right? So that's what you use. You could move these chunks ups and downs. Of course, this is the run button. This is a stop. This stops the kernel. Let's say you have, you know, written a code that never stops, right? If you run this while true is always true, it's going to keep running this, right? So it's just going to keep running this forever. How do we go about stopping this? This is what we use. We interrupt the kernel. And once you do that, if you scroll down, it says, you know, you interrupted it. That's why I'm giving this error. And, you know, this is when you want to restart your kernel. What does restarting a kernel means? You know, for instance, I say A is equal to 10, right? So if I say A, it knows that A is 10, right? But if I were to restart the kernel, right? For example, I restart the kernel, it's just going to wipe the slate clean. Now, if I say A, it's going to say, what is A? I don't know A, right? You have to do everything from the beginning. And pay attention, once you restart the kernel, let's do it one more time. Then once you start running, these, you know, numbers is going to start from 1, right? Pay attention. I mean, there is 2, 3, 15. Now start running, they're going to start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so forth. The last thing I want to, you know, make sure that we are aware of is that, you know, how we would close and open in a Jupyter Notebook file, right? So here you click this, it makes sure that, you know, all of these are saved. So now you're safe to close this. And now, you know, how do I find where you know, the file was? When you use this new Python 3, it creates a untitled, you know, IPYMB, which is the extension for Jupyter Notebook file. You know, I actually don't use this to, change the file name or whatnot. You can actually find this folder in your computer. This is that folder in my computer, and I would just change this to video notes, whatever it is that you want to use. And then once you do this, if you go back to, then you've got video notes, and if you click on it, it's going to be that file that we just worked on together. Alright, so in this video we learned a lot of things about Jupyter Notebook. We haven't started learning about programming yet, but we wanted to get introduced to the environment, to the UI, user interface, that we are going to be using in the next videos, as far as how it's best to use this UI for your learning. Alright, until the next video.